born, they grow, they go through a definite internal development. Hold on a second, please. Mm, Class, exactly what is your class trend? There are only some 19 people here, but I have been informed that there were 24 of you in the morning. Should I proceed with this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Let's continue.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I didn't get you. Okay, fine. So, stars have a life cycle much. You, all of you are able to see the screen, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Can everybody see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Stars have a life cycle much like animals. They get born, they grow, they go through a definite internal development, and finally they die to give back the material of which they are made of so that new stars may live. This is exactly what the principle behind a sustainable material should be. So, once a material is given life, once a material is being used, and once the life cycle of the material is over, it should still be able to be used as another material. So that is how we are going to now start recognizing what makes a material sustainable. A second, please. Okay, so moving on to what a sustainable material and product is. So, a material that brings in environmental, social, and economical benefits, and it should not be harmful to your consumer's health, and it should not be harmful to the environment. This is the main principle behind a sustainable material. Not be harmful to your consumer's health and not be harmful to your environment. And during the whole process of its life cycle, no, it there should be absolutely no harm to our environment. That is very very important for a sustainable material. And a non-sustainable material definitely has a lot of negative impact. Okay, it is negative to the environment, it's negative to your society, it's negative to your economy. As in to say, it is harmful to your environment, it is harmful to society, as in it will affect the health of the consumer and economy. It will be expensive. Any material that is expensive also you can consider as a non-sustainable material. Throughout the process of the extraction, use and disposal, there should be absolutely no harm to your consumer's health, environment, and your economy. So that is what is going to be a sustainable material. Anything that is contradictive of it is a non-sustainable material. So where exactly do you find your sustainable material? Under which market do you have the main economy and concept for your sustainable factor? So you have your food industry, textile industry, footwear industry, chemical industry, packaging, paper, electronics, and construction. Your food and industry. How do you find sustainable products in food industry? A second, please. Okay, so where do you find sustainable products in your food industry? You find them in two parts. One is your direct food ingredients, where you actually make a sustainable vegetables and fruits. Okay, the actual ingredients that you're using for cooking and all that is going to be a sustainable thing. So how do you consider that? Mostly you actually all your organic food is considered as a sustainable food. Second thing about food, second part where you consider it in a food industry is your packaging. Your packaging unit, where they send you the supplies there, where you they send you your cooked food, pre-cooked food, all that should be for sustainable material. Then your textile, reusing your cloth, and then footwear. Again, you making the footwear through a sustainable materials, and then even after recycling other materials, you can still be able to make it, or you can still use that same footwear itself to recycle it and create another material out of it. The chemical industry actually is one factor where sustainable market is low, but it needs to be high. The use of chemicals, so many chemicals are very harmful to the environment. This is one industry where actually the sustainable product have to be more taken into more of a consideration. Packaging, now we are promoting all these brown papers and paper bags, cloth bags. Then you have sustainable paper. Sustainable paper comes through reforestation. You are only papers that come through reforestation is considered as a sustainable paper. Any other paper that like from coming from deforestation, or coming only through just cutting down of trees, and if there is no replanting of the trees in that very same area, that paper was not be considered as sustainable. Electronic devices, where these the materials that are used for creating this electronics, all this being recycled and reused, there again you can it falls under sustainable market. And our industry, the construction industry, the most important one, which actually produces up to 85% of sustainable factor. So for construction industry is where we will be concentrating now and talking about what how you recognize a construction material. S What exactly is the current scenario right now? Today's society is so much based on consumerism, destruction, toxicity, hoarding, and disrespect of materials. Consumerism is we only consume all the materials. We don't give back to the environment. We do not give back to the industry. We do not give back to the producers, manufacturers. We get something, we consume it, and we go on. That has to change. Destruction, the for example, like we spoke about the paper industry right now, they cut down the trees, but they do not replant the trees. So that's an example of destruction. Toxicity, you can consider all your PVCs, formaldehydes, your lead paints. All these are toxic materials. All these have to come down. Hoarding, we you can take the present scenario happening right now with all this pandemic. People are hoarding all the materials. People are holding whatever is available. We are not like open to sharing because we are scared that later on we may not get that. So hoarding has to come down. Disrespect of material, only because we have absolutely no respect for this materials. We are using them in umpteen and we are not giving back anything. take your renewable and non-renewable resources. Is because renewable resources can be renewed. We have been using it so much. Take water for example. It used to be a renewable resources long back, but now it is starting to become a non-renewable resource because we have consumed it so much that it's starting to become a non-renewable resource. And why would that happen? Because we have no respect for whatever resources are available. So all these scenarios have to completely change. So to change these scenarios, it's a slow and steady race. You have to, the only thing you can do is go about it really slowly, but it has an effect. So, how do you actually stick to this? How do you make improvements to that scenario? Through commitment and documentation. That is how you actually recognize what a sustainable product is, also. So, when you actually think about using sustainable product, people usually do not go for it because they think it is inaccessible. That's actually not true. A material that is not accessible to you readily is not a sustainable material at all. Sustainable material actually differs from place to place, area to area. So when you think about your material in, what do you, I'm sorry. So when you think about material that is okay, let's take US and India itself for an example. In US, you will find a lot of wooden house. Okay, not US. Maybe take Japan for example. Japan and India. So in Japan, you'll find a lot of wooden structures. You will have a lot of wooden houses. But the same thing cannot be done over here. You cannot do the same in India because we do not have so many forests. We do not have so many reforestable areas. So because of that, wood is not considered as a readily sustainable material for us. Only in some places in India you can consider it that way. But in Japan, all over Japan, wood is considered as a sustainable material because it is accessible everywhere in Japan. They have a lot of forest areas and they have a lot of reforestation happening in Japan. So because of that, you will have a lot of materials available over there, and you will have a lot of um, uh, wood manufacturing happening over there. So Japan, another thing is they have frequent earthquakes. So what happens is, one, due to earthquake, these wooden structures get demolished, and these same wooden materials is go through a recycling process, and again it's being used as either it's in the same industry for construction itself, or it's being used in a different industry. So the life cycle of that material is continuous. So that is an example of how a product is considered as sustainable, and that is how you distinguish whether it is accessible or inaccessible to you. Scarcity, product variety, same example. I will use to explain that. So what is scarce for us is abundant to them. So there is a difference in how we consider a sustainable material. Product without any documentation. So if a product does not have any documentation to prove that it is a sustainable material, you cannot call it a sustainable material. Mostly because all the process that goes behind documenting a product for calling it sustainable, there is only if the rules apply to it, you get a documentation for it. If it's rejected, it is not a sustainable material. Fake products. People sell fake products as a sustainable material. It happens happening even now. Certain plastic bags are being sold as recyclable bags. These are fake ones. There are fake ones which have the stamp of recyclable or biodegradable on them. But actually, when you burn it yourself, you'll be able to see the difference. It is not a sustainable product. It's a fake product. Bad disclosure is considered at the point because people now, like, because of fake product, they start losing the trust in material, they start losing hope in them, and they stop using them itself. And then your market conservatism. So some markets are so based on conserving the resources that what happens is you do not get the material easily. They what these markets do at times is they sell these products at a higher rate, and what because of this, some of the people in the industry or some of the consumers, some of the middlemen between your consumers and your manufacturers, they get affected. So these are the problems we face with the commitment, and how you tackle the commitment and documentation is how we are going to see it. So overcoming the challenges and making progress. How do you change your market from a bad market to a optimal market? What you do is what is going to make a difference. So a bad market, where we spoke about waste generation, disrespect, destruction, and deprecation. Okay, yeah, this is what is existing right now. So how you change it? There are certain people who have actually taken the step. There are so many of them who have actually gone forward into it and have started using the proper methods of sustaining your market and proper method of using sustainable materials. So like an optimal market actually now has reuse, respect, regeneration, and recycle. So you reuse your materials, you respect the environment for what it is. That by respecting the environment, you regenerate them. So when you take something from your environment, you give back to it. You take a probably you take the some tree, you cut down the tree to either make a paper or you use it for some kind of making your shelf. So what happens is you have, but if you respect the environment, you are going to regenerate it, you are going to replant a tree in its place. And recycling, whatever you are having, recycle it. By recycling, you can keep your sustainable market alive. So how do you go about doing it? You have to balance your overall goals. Now, when you talk about overall goals, you talk about your global responsibility. You talk about all market, not just for your country, not just for your region. You are going to talk about, you are going to think about your responsibility to the planet overall, not just your place. So when you take it in that factor, you will have to think about how all markets are important. Like for example, you take your construction industry, you are using this wood itself to construct your house. Maybe you are using that wood to make a shelf. So what happens after the life cycle of the shelf goes through? Once the shelf probably starts deteriorating, or once you realize the shelf has lost its value, as in to say you are no longer using that shelf. If you recycle it, that same the material, that product, that material gets recycled into a different product and is used in different markets. So you consider all markets as important, not just your own. Diversity, understanding regional multiplicity. So understanding regional multiplicity means you understand that the particular product is not just fit to your environment, I mean your region alone. So it different products for different regions. So what you do is for your particular region, you take some material, you take some raw ingredient, raw material from the environment to make use of it. Now what you need to do is, what you take something, you have to give back in multiple accounts, not just in how. If you are taking one tray, give back three folds, give back four folds. So that is understanding a regional multiplicity. So development, the dependence without depreciation. So dependence without depreciation, what it means is, when you develop something, there should not be any kind of depreciating value. You cannot have your economy depreciating because of like we spoke about how there is market conservatism, where people conserve those particular product and list it at a higher value, as certain people get affected because of it, certain people are not accessible to it because of the higher value. That is what you consider under dependence without depreciation. Let's next is your specific goals. So what we spoke about before was your overall goals. Now, very specific goals that it's very specific to our industry is limiting exposure to toxic materials. So the limiting exposure to your toxic materials is how you actually stop using all your toxic materials and stop exposing people to your toxic materials. So under your toxic materials, we spoke about lead paints and formaldehydes you find in your upholstery. Then you have plastic bag that you carry around. All these are toxic materials. Once you start limiting your exposure to these materials, automatically these materials itself will start getting the production of these materials can start getting reduced. So if you keep having that steady point to that, so at there will come one point when these toxic materials will not be produced itself. Second, you will consider avoiding waste. Be it anything, even the material, even the food that you are using. Hold on a second, please. Okay, sorry. So limiting your exposure. Sorry, we are talking about avoiding waste. Avoiding waste as in even the food that you eat, even the vegetable peels that you eat, even those you can avoid wastage. You can use the same thing for decomposting and create manure out of it. Or even now there is a certain ways of making food where you actually use even the peels. You actually use even how do you dehydrate them and make use of it, turn them into a powder and make use of it. There are so many ways to avoid waste. Only thing is, you need to start pushing yourself into it. Fixing dangerous situations in construction project. So this is actually really important for you people, because what happens is, when you're doing some kind of a renovation project, and there was you are the product actually is like, for example, to consider your you're doing a renovation for an interior project where the house is already existing. So certain people, what certain designers, certain architects, what they do is to cut down on the cost. Because of the budget, what they do is, whatever existing paint is probably there, they leave it as it is and they just click on to the next step. But do they actually take a step back to check whether those paints are lead paints? Do they have formaldehydes in them? Unless you do not check them, you are actually creating a dangerous situation for the people living in there. So it will lead to a SBA, sick building syndrome. I'm sure all of you have heard of it. So you need to that just in one example of how you fix dangerous situation. Other than that, you also have wooden rotting structures. So your beams and columns that are probably infused with some kind of a toxic material. All this has to come down. All this you need to check, and once you check, you can probably come up with different ways to fix them. And then apply green cleaning. That is what you do once you find your dangerous situation. You apply green cleaning. So if your wall paints are having a lead in them or formaldehyde in them, what you will be doing is you will be scraping out whatever is remaining of it, and you will be applying a new coat over it, which is considered as a green material, which is considered a sustainable material. Managing emissions you will be considering for your construction industry. You will be considering emissions from your factories. You will be considering them from your um, factories manufacturing process, and then you will also be considering them from your on-site production, where you will be having certain materials. You'll have to heat them up before you apply them. So when you do that, how much of CO2 is emitted, how much of greenhouse gas is emitted, all this you have to check, all this you have to manage. And then extend the life cycle of the material use. So this is what we were talking about before, how you actually keep extending your life cycle of your material through reuse and recycling. Going on to next, we will be talking about how a documentation of a material happens. What's the process that goes behind your documentation? First is you will consider the approach taken for documentation. How exactly a documentation happens? They first will check the process or purpose. What's the purpose behind the material being used and why you are actually doing your documentation? And then second, sorry, you have rules for product category. Your PCR is called as product category rules. Your product category rules is what defines what what are the rules behind considering that particular material as a sustainable material. What makes the material sustainable? How you go about documenting it will all come under your rules for product category. Next is your life cycle analysis. You will take the life of the cycle of your material and you will analyze it based on the from the very beginning of the from the extraction process till the very end. You will be considering the considering all stages to find your what makes your process, what makes the material sustainable. So what all goes through it to call it a life cycle analysis. Okay. Next is your VOC declaration. VOC is volatile organic compound. Volatile organic compounds are nothing but a toxic compound that harm your environment. So VOC declaration has to be the it has the material has to have a VOC declaration saying that it is a non-volatile organic compound. Only then you will be considering that material as a sustainable material. Then comes your EPD, environmental product declaration. Environmental product declaration will tell you that there was absolutely no process involved in harming your environment while producing this particular material. And then there is your HPD, health product declaration. Health product declaration will declare that your product will not harm the health of the consumer will. And while the whole process of manufacturing the product will I'm sorry, class. Did we get disconnected? Class, can somebody please tell me if we got disconnected?
Yes, ma'am. Just now, ma'am.
Can you tell me from at which point we got disconnected? I do not know when we got disconnected itself. Why didn't anybody tell me?
Approaches, ma'am.
Uh, can you tell me which was the last point we were talking about? Somebody tell me which was the last point we were talking about when we got disconnected?
Ma'am, just
Give
one
me a
minute before,
response.
ma'am.
Sorry, which one?
Just 1 minute before, ma'am. We can't see your screen.
No, I haven't shared my screen yet. I'm asking you at which point. Okay, fine. I'll show you my screen and then you can tell me where we got disconnected. Okay?
Ma'am, approach,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay. You're able to see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's go back. The documentation of materials. Was this covered up? Do people remember this? How about specific
Yes,
balance
ma'am.
of goals?
This was completed, ma'am.
Okay, we have finished balance of goals.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so from documentation of materials, then approach.
Ma'am,
We
this
have
one only,
displayed
ma'am.
results, ma'am.
Okay,
This
well,
one.
I'll start from approach once more.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so next time we get disconnected, please somebody let me know. All right.
Sure, ma'am.
Okay, so approach. We are going to talk about why a documentation is important, why a documentation happens. Okay, so first is your purpose behind your documentation. Only if you like have a documentation done for a material, only then you can tell that a product is sustainable. Without this, nobody is going to believe you. Second is your rules for product category PCR. These are the rules that define a material as a sustainable material. This is what will tell you how a product is categorized as a sustainable material. What are the rules it needs to satisfy to be a sustainable material? Next is your life cycle analysis. Life cycle analysis, you'll take a product and you will analyze its whole life cycle to figure out whether is a sustainable process, whether sustainable processes were followed right from its extraction process to the very end of the life cycle of that material. Next is your VOC declaration. VOC declaration means volatile organic compound declaration. Volatile organic compounds is nothing but a toxicity of a particular material. So only if you have a non-volatile declaration, then you can tell that the product is sustainable. Then comes your EPD, Environmental Product Declaration. So EPD is what says that your material did not harm your environment throughout its manufacturing process, throughout its, and until your end of your life cycle. So throughout the life cycle of your process, no environment was harmed. So that is what your environmental product declaration will say. Next is last is your HPD, health product declaration. This will tell you that it is not harmful to the health of your consumers, nor was it harmful to the health of the people involved in the manufacturing process. Next comes, we'll start with your purpose for the documentation. So documentation, one second. Okay, so your documentation is the way you will be telling how responsible your product was to the environment from your extraction process to the end of its life. And you only through documentation people are going to believe that your product is the sustainable product. Without your documentation, nobody will believe. Second is, without your documentation, it is not possible to say what all the process that went through for your material to be produced. So, with documentation, it is possible to map and facilitate the quality control of your materials, processes, and their impact on the environment. Okay, so next is how your documentations are born. So what are the processes that goes behind the documentation? First is your PCR. PCR is your product category roles. Only if your product category roles are satisfied, you will be able to call it a sustainable material. So what all is considered under your product category roles? Life cycle analysis, hazardous chemicals, volatile organic compound declaration. Now, life cycle analysis, which as we were talking about before, is to consider the full life cycle of a product to figure out whether was harmful to the environment or not. And then hazardous chemicals. Should have been no use of hazardous chemical in the treatment of your material. It should have There should be, or in even the packaging or like transportation. No hazardous chemicals should have been used. And then volatile organic compound declaration. Only if your product is non-volatile, non-VOC declared, then your product is considered as sustainable. So for your life cycle analysis and your VOC declaration, two things are important: EPD and HPD. That is your environmental product declaration and health product declaration. Without these two, you will not be able to tell whether for your during your life cycle whether it was sustainable or not, and whether your product is non-toxic. Okay, so moving on to each of these parts. So product category rules, your product category rules, like we spoke about, elaborates on the life cycle analysis. So, and it also are the rules that is required for making a product sustainable. So only through your PCR you have like a proper evaluation between competitors. Two different brands probably making that same product will have like only the how do you actually put a price to it? How do you rate it? So when you come to that, a proper evaluation can be done only when you look through your PCR for that particular product. So whichever product of these two brands actually has a proper adherence to PCR, and it actually has a higher rating, is the one which actually followed the rules properly. So yeah, consumers can have a straight and coherent evaluation only if you have we have this through the PCR rules only. Your consumer actually can know what are the processes that goes behind documenting a material. ISO 21930 and ISO 14025. These are the two particular standards that are used for documenting your sustainable material. These are the two particular standards that have all the rules for your environmental declaration of your product. Okay, you can follow these rules to check on your materials. So for example, if you're going to the market to buy some particular material and you're looking for sustainable materials, search for this ISO marking on them. If it is there, then it is a sustainable product. Okay, and then PCR rules is developed by the industry itself. It's so being developed by the industry, the people actually already know what are the process that goes behind it and make sure that they stick to the proper rules. Any company related compose the committee that forms the rules. So, like, what happens is when the committee that forms the rules for this PCRs, not for the product, uh, these particular materials, this company itself will create its own committee, and these committees will have to send these rules, send whatever they are doing to the ISO standards for the checking. So like, or what they can do is properly get the standards from the ISO and make sure that the committee checks through every process of that material and make sure that it is sticking to the rules that is required for the declarations. And this is environment UL. Actually, this is one particular company that works very closely with sustainable product. So this actually, what you can probably do is, if you're creating one particular material, you can send it to this company. They will evaluate the whole sustainable process for you. And but if you are sending it at the, if your proposal itself at your very starting stage, they will run you through the process of how the whole how the whole environmental how the whole sustainable process should happen. This is just one example of a company. There are many such companies that actually do that. So EPD, DAP, all these are companies that give you rules for how to go about doing your sustainable processing for your material. Then comes your LCA, life cycle analysis. So when you consider your life cycle analysis, there are these four parts you consider for analyzing it. Extraction, then you come the process or your manufacturing, then comes your delivery and the user. Extraction is where you extract your raw material from. So during your extraction of your raw material, there should be no harm to the environment. Second is your process, that is your manufacturing happen. So manufacturing of the material has to make sure there is no harm to the environment. Like for example, let's take your wood itself. During the extraction process of your wood, so when you cut down the wood for construction of material, as an extraction, you have to make sure that plant is at one more tree is replanted in its place. You have to make sure that reforestation is taking place in that same place from where you're taking down your trees. Next is your process. Your process, that is your manufacturing of that particular material. So if you're taking that wood into a manufacturing or to the industry for manufacturing, okay, here what you'll have to do is you have to make sure that there is no harmful chemicals used in the manufacturing process. You have to make sure that there is no greenhouse gas emissions. There should be no carbon monoxide emissions and carbon dioxide, not too much of a carbon dioxide emissions. Then comes your delivery process. So when you come to a delivery process, you will consider your packaging units, you will consider your transportation units, all that will you have to check for your life cycle analysis. And then finally is your user. Even the user counts. So when you're sending your process, when you're sending your final product to the user, it has to be such that the user can actually make use of it further than the useful life of that particular product. Like the product can have a lifespan, and within that, as much as possible, the user should be able to use it beyond its lifespan. And other than that, the user should also be able to recycle your material. That is all considered for your life cycle analysis. Now, your life cycle analysis can happen in three ways. One is it's called cradle to Cradle actually means something like deposit or extraction, like very raw material kind of a thing. So from your raw material to the gate. So this process, this particular method has only three processes: extraction, manufacturing, and client. So you extract the material, you manufacture it, and you sell it to your client. In this case, your client itself is your final consumer. The next process is cradle to grave. This has four processes in it: extraction, production, client, and final destination. So you extract the raw material, you produce it, you manufacture it. That is, you send it to your client. Your client is probably a seller or a company who is going to sell it to your final destination, that is your final consumer. And then comes the third process, cradle to cradle, that is you return your product to the productive cycle. That is, this one will have like a never ending cycle. You start with the extraction, you go, you manufacture it, and then you sell it to your consumer, or you sell it to a company who is going to sell it to the consumer. And once the consumer is done with the product, it is sent back into the productive cycle. That is, your consumer has to recycle it, where the process, that same material now again goes through a recycling process and ends up at the manufacturing unit, or it ends up at extraction unit, where the raw material is again extracted out of it, and then again it is manufactured, and again it is sold to your consumer. So like this is one never ending cycle. This is actually the most up cycle for your sustainable materials. Now, when you talk about that particular cycle, when you talk about your sustainable cycle, you consider them in two ways. One is your biological cycle, and the other is your technical cycle. So, your biological cycle, hold on a second, please. Okay, so your biological cycle is you start with your parts that are being manufactured. So when you that goes next to your the product that is you send it to your product manufacturer. That is to say, you take a raw material that would probably that is going to be made into the MDF boards, that is now going to be sent to your product manufacturer. These MDF boards is now going to be shaped into some kind of a material, some kind of a furniture. So now this produced furniture is now going to be sent to your service provider. Your service provider is the one who is selling the product to your consumer, or it can be sold to your user when you consider the technical cycle. Right now we are considering only the biological cycle, so let's talk from the consumer side. So your consumer now is going to send it to your, what the consumer is going to do with it, what is going to happen to the material once it comes under the hand of your consumer. Collection. So once your product completes its lifespan, the product gets collected through a recycling process, and then through the recycling process, it's again sent to your energy recovery. Energy recovery is nothing but your recycling unit. So in your recycling unit, it is going to be split apart into two. One where your material is going to be which the parts of the material that can be reused, the parts of the material that can be remanufactured, or raw material can be extracted from it. It's going to be sent in over there. The part which cannot be, it will be sent into your landfills, and the parts which is being sent into your landfills also should be the kind which through which you can actually sustain your environment. That is like to say, we were talking about the MDF board. So once the MDF board comes to the collection unit, what will happen is all the MDF boards will be separated together and kept to get collected as a whole, and then this whole will be sent to the energy recovery. This MDF board in an energy recovery will be split apart into two. That is what they will do over here is whatever parts of your MDF board can be recycled, as in to say there are sub long big boards that can actually be cut into smaller parts and used for a smaller material. They will put them separately. All the small MDF boards that cannot be used again, they will now start what do you call it, how do you say that, start compressing them, and they will start mixing them up with the rest of the other recyclable materials, and they will put it into the landfills along with the rest of your sustainable recyclable materials. So once the broken parts of your MDF board goes into your landfill, they will probably sprout another tree out of it, because basically all that is coming from your wood. Or what will happen is at least create a soil for your landfills. So this is your biological cycle. Now the same thing when you talk through a technical cycle, your process will be the same, but how from your collection unit, how it goes back will differ. So from your collection unit, your user actually can keep maintaining it to expand its lifespan. Otherwise, from your collection unit, you can send it back. That's what we spoke about, like to the certain parts of your material that can be reused will again be sent to your service provider in case the material is, I mean, your product is as it is without any damage to it. So once you send it to your service provider, he can probably refurbish it and send it as a second hand product. Or if the process needs like a smaller, bigger MDF board that can be cut and used into a smaller unit, they will be sent back to your product manufacturer, who will now cut them down into a smaller board and use it for a different material. Or with and we spoke about recycling through your collection also. So like in the same collection, so like certain boards that the product manufacturer is not going to accept will go back to your parts manufacturer, that is all the way up to the manufacturing unit, where they will recycle it and again create a huge MDF board out of it. Okay, so that is what your biological cycle and your technical cycle is. Next is your product life cycle analysis. So how exactly you analyze the life cycle of your product? So the life cycle of a product, you will be what are the things you need to consider for analyzing your life cycle? Raw material extraction, manufacturing process and packaging, distribution, logistics, life of use, provision at the end of use. So when you how the material we spoke, I already explained to you before what all needs to be considered when you're considering your life cycle analysis. So like the way your material is being extracted, it should not be harmful to your environment. There should be no harm to the environment during your manufacturing processing and packaging, distribution, logistic, life of use. I have already explained to you the life cycle analysis. Now what we will be talking about is why exactly you need to consider your life cycle analysis. Only when if you consider your life cycle analysis, you can actually consider the impact that is taken, the impact for each step taken for this analyzing the process. And then the information is collected and organized in a document. This particular document is what is going to be used for certification. That document is what you will send to your EPD and HPD to certify that your product was completely sustainable throughout its process. So next is your benefits of product life cycle. So the benefits is the manufacturer actually has a clear image of your product, not just the manufacturer, even your seller. So once your product is actually produced, your manufacturer actually will have like, okay, fine, he will know that the process has to be completely sustainable, and he will know that he has to stick to all the PCA rules, and then he will make sure that the product is actually sold to a consumer or it's sold to a seller who will maintain the sustainability of the product. Next is your LCA Lifecycle Analysis. Provides detailed information on each stage of your process. So, because you actually provide LCA provides detailed information of the process, it is easier for the EPD and HPD department to give a certification for the product. More information for the customers. So when you go to buy as either as either as a manufacturer of a product or as end user, that is whether you're going to buy it as consumer, you will actually know all the information for the particular product, what all went into manufacture of the product. Transparency for the buyers will actually know what's that, like how much of the process went through it, and they can actually analyze themselves whether the process, whether the cost given for the product is worth it. Okay, and then the final step is it shows where the process can be improved. So like there are certain cases where the probably the manufacturer or the consumer feels like this is too expensive because of this particular process, and hence maybe they can find some alternative process, maybe they can reduce the cost of that particular product. So what happens is, because of that one step, a new company itself will form where they will provide the same product at a lower rate and at a much more easier process, that or much more sustainable process that does not harm the environment. Sorry. Okay, so your life cycle analysis, how you exactly you go about doing a life cycle analysis? Use the same way like how you have, I mentioned to you about that environmental company. That is what like that you have certain companies that will actually analyze the whole product and document it for you. Next is your volatile organic compound declarations. We spoke about what volatile organic compounds are. You have to make sure that there is no volatile organic compound, or as much as possible, they should not emit so much of the vapor pressure under normal condition. Only then you will be your product will be given environmental product sorry, EPD and HPD, environmental product declaration, and health product declaration. And then you how you could do how this is just one of your company that provides you a volatile declaration, volatile organic compound declaration. So no to low VOC, that is what you have to aim for, either no VOC or low VOC. The standards for that are used for declaring a product, and then your sources, where exactly all this VOC happens is what has to be considered during the production. A second, 1 second. Sorry. Okay, so we are talking about what were we talking about? Oh yeah. So where are your sources of volatile? organic compound that has to be checked when you given for your declaration. So factory emission, during the process of manufacturing of that product, there should be either low VOC emission or no VOC emission. Then heat emission through exhaust of HVAC equipments. Then comes your smoke and CO2 from vehicles, that is due to your transportation. And then you have emissions from paints and finishes, floors of furniture, or any other construction materials, insecticide, pesticides, freon gas, lead, all these that do not get disposed properly. These are all your sources of your VOC emissions. Paint. This is considering for your interiors in particular. Paints, paint strippers, other solvents, wood preservatives, aerosol sprays, cleansers and disinfectants, moth repellents and air fresheners, dry cleaning clothing, hobby supplies, stored fuels and automotive products. So your aerosol sprays are actually the sprays that you are using for your air fresheners. They are also the sprays that are used for certain wood preservatives. So you need to be careful about all this when you choose your supplies. Effects of HVAC. Why do you need to check about why do you need to check into this HVAC? Is because of your health issues such as your eye, nose, and throat irritation. So your VOC. Any of your volatile organic compounds that actually once you are we said it is a toxic material. So as it keeps emitting your organic compound, what happens is you face health issues that affect your eyes, nose, and throat. Certain people get nausea, headaches, skin allergies, respiratory problem in particular comes for lead pains, and it's very you consider that particularly for small children's. Small, like for example, if you any place you take, no, they will tell you not to use lead paints for children's room, for nurseries and schools. So all this is because small children are more prone to VOC than human. I mean, adults at least develop some kind of immunity through their life, but small children, they are like when they are just exposed to it directly, they have a low immunity, so they get affected much more easily by VOCs. And for that reason, you need to be very careful about making sure that there is no VOC in any of the materials that you use, or the effect of it is really low. Acid rains, increase global temperature and damage to ozone layer. This is what happens due to the effect of VOC to the environment. We spoke about before to your society. This is for your environment, and your declarations for your VOC. And then comes your environmental product declaration. Environmental product declaration says like,
Excuse me, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
Ma'am, actually we had lunch break from 12:30 to 1:15, ma'am.
Just a second. Can you repeat that once more, please?
Ma'am, we had lunch break from 12:30 to 1:15 actually.
Hello, I'm not able to hear you.
Ma'am, can you hear me now?
Okay. Can you repeat once more, please?
Ma'am, we had lunch break at 12:30 to 1:15, ma'am.
Okay, you want me to continue after lunch break or something?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm, okay, fine. Let's do it that way. We'll continue after lunch. Sure. Actually, there's not much. Sure. Just a second. Okay, fine. We'll do it after lunch. Mm?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
We'll come back by 1:15.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Okay, you go for your lunch, all of you. Class, until the rest of your classmates come, can you please fill in the attendance form? I put the link for the attendance form in your meeting ID. Sorry, in your chat box. Class, please fill in your attendance form. The link I've put in the chat box. We will continue with your with the lecture. Those who are coming can join again. Okay. Okay, so your environmental product declaration, it's a declaration form that proves that your product is environmentally sustainable. Your environmental product declaration is related to the life cycle analysis of your product, okay, and you have different ISO. Remember the ISO we spoke about that before and with your PCR rules. So your same PCR rules ISO are used for the as a standard for your environmental product declaration. And then why do you need to have your environmental product declaration? Because through your environmental product declaration, you can reduce the cost of energy and transport. It also supports innovative product development. Like I was explaining before, uh, only because all your steps are going to be transparent to your consumers, only because every single step is going to be mentioned in your documentation, it is easy for somebody else to come up with ways to reduce the cost or cut down any of the processes required for your documentation. And then it meets the demands of your customers and specification, and it's also recognized by your building assessment team. So this is how your environmental product declaration forms will look. Your health product declaration is similar to your environmental product declaration. The difference is that your environmental product declaration will say that it was not harmful to the environment, nor will it be harmful to the environment even after its lifespan. Health product declaration will tell you that your product is there is no health hazards for your uh, consumers, and then you have your quality of health product declaration. It depends on three things: level of disclosure, method used to assess the material, and third is whether or not the content is verified by a third party. So what happens is when for level of disclosure, you will have to check on how much of the declaration certifier, no, the authority in charge of this declaration, they will check the product authority, how much, what all the steps are going to be, what are the steps that are involved in the production of this material for the sustainable material. So what they will be doing is they will say what all information you have disclosed about your product, and then the methods used to assess and screen the material. So what are the methods you have actually you use for screening the material? So as long as the screening of the material, I mean the assessment of materials used for assessing it is really high, then the HPD rating will be high. And then you need to have it verified by a third party, not just by your own company, and not just by your manufacturer, but also by a person completely unrelated to this product. Then the client will have to, how you actually do this is you will have to register video. Hold on a second. The client will have to register a product on the online, and then after that, what will happen is the ones who register it, the people in charge, the authority and the certifier will help you through the data collection. Then you will have to see how long it will take for the HPD to determine your product, and how long it take for the client to I'm sorry, your authority to give your the consent. The client will collect the material, will check for potential hazards and problems, and then third party verifier will be sent. After that only you will finally have your approval. I'm sorry, did we lose connection once more?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, hold on a second. Hold on a second, please. Okay, you're able to see the screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So your main thrust is behind certifying sustainable building. LEED, I'm sure all of you know about LEED. LEED is the global main authority behind green building. And then you have WELS, International Wellbeing Institute. LBC is your Living Building Challenge. And then there is one more, which is focusing only on Indian. So there is IGBC, Indian Green Building Council, and there is one more, Griha. Okay, so Griha is Green Building for Association for Indian standards again. Okay, so now we'll start with specification of materials. How I choose a material based on your sustainability. So the approach we take for choosing a sustainable material. Plus, I have one more class right now. Yeah, that's why I was trying to finish this up before lunch. Let's do one thing. Um, can we come back to this by 2:30?
Okay, ma'am.
Hmm? Until then, I want you all to work on your interior design. You're having minimums class today, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Just a second, hold on. Just continue with your classes, read through your notes, whatever has been given. Only thing is, stay online over here. I will join you as soon as my review is over. I have a thesis review with final year, 3 final year. So please just give me a few half an hour maximum. I'll try to finish it up as soon as possible and I'll get back. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Has everyone filled in your attendance in the Google form? Somebody please give me a response. Have all of you filled in your attendance in the Google form? That biomimicry form is not at all seen now. The whole thing was supposed to be a part of it. You have cut off the two sides of it. The whole form is lost. There is no biomimicry feature at all in your design, Akshaya. The concept and your planning and is not at all going now. I'm really sorry, class. It took longer than expected. Shall we continue? I will finish it off as quickly as possible, and I will take you directly to the main part. We will start with the process required, and we will. I'll show you an example of how how a functional sustainable material should be when included in your design. Okay. So we spoke about the approaches for sorry, okay, yeah, specification of materials. We will go through it first. We will talk about what the purpose of specification is, how you specify what makes it a good specificator, source of material, sustainability indicator, material that should be avoided, mark cards, reduce carbon footprint, and the labeling. Okay, so when you talk about a specifier, like why exactly a specifier should be an architect's concern, because people who actually buy your designs are kind of like a businessman. Okay, and what is required for a businessman is they need to get something out of it. So what they are looking for is not just something they can invest, not just something they can buy, but something they can invest in. So, like for example, let's take a contractor or a building planner maybe you have these huge apartments, branded apartments, right? Like Akshara, and then you have Akshaya, and then you have those. Prestige Group, VGN groups, Casa Grande, all these kind of they build you like a small townships in itself. So when they approach you as an architect, what they want is not just a building plan where they can sell the apartment to the people, but something that will make the people buy them. So because of all this, you when you invest in sustainability, that actually gives you something more in return. Like for example, let's take these big small townships they are building. Each of these townships, either it be row houses or apartments, once you set them up with solar panels, that will end up big. That will not only give electricity to the apartment on the whole, but excess electricity actually can be sold back to the government, to the electricity and electric station, and they get paid for it. So that is what they mean by looking for an investment, not just something that they can buy. So this is why specification is really important. And then you have a technical responsibility. So once you actually give a specification, your technical investment, whatever technical detailing you're putting into your design, no, it will actually run smoothly, because you are already giving all your specification at the very starting itself. So once your specification is given, it is so much easier for the technicality of your design to proceed forward, and then your project becomes your curriculum. And identification of sustainable products. You have to identify the correct documentation for each material. Then once you balance your budget and regionality, your sustainability also gets balanced. Then structuring for specification. Is there any construction project management student over here for this lecture? No? Yes or no? Any CPM student here? Okay, if nobody else is there, then I will move forward from this. This is more specific to a project management class. So, what is required for your specification? The step for designing, you have saving of resources, energy, and what is saving flexibility, 5 hours, and your design purpose. So saving resources is what is very important for your sustainable design. You reduce, reuse, and recycle. Then energy and water savings, as much as possible, you try to save your energy through use of green green buildings, and then you save your energy and water resources through what do you call that? Sorry, guys, just give me a second. Okay, energy saving and water saving is actually you follow this certain rules, and I also this is more specific to your interiors, where you have your indoor water reduction as per your requirement, where you save at least 20% of your water, and all the way specified for that is given in your LED book. Okay, once you look into your LED for ways to save water use, there is a like lot of rules given. Like for example, your shower area needs to have a flow rate of 9.5 liters per minute, and your toilet, your flushes should be only some 6 liters per flush. Then public faucets should be 1.9 liters per minute. So you have these kind of rules that you need to follow. So what you will be doing is you will be specifically searching for those products. You specify that only these particular products which have this particular kind of flow rate will be used in the spaces. And once you start using a solar energy, your consumption of non-renewable resources automatically reduce, because once you start depending on solar power for your energy, your hydropower stations is also okay, but the coal that you use for running all the TNEB power stations, no, that will reduce. And then you have flexibility. Your design should be flexible. You have to create a design in such a way that you can use that same space for multiple reasons. It should have, for each room in the house should have its own purpose. I'm so sorry, class. We lost connection once more. Can anybody please tell me where I need to continue from? Class, can somebody please tell me from where I need to continue?
Ma'am, from portico slide, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm opening it. Hold on. Okay, so we spoke about waste management. I think Durga Lakshmi is the one who was answering me right now, so I'm posing the question back to you itself. Is just are we talking about waste management or product labels?
One
Hello?
second, ma'am.
We covered up product labels. Please give
You are
me a
talking
yes or a
about
no.
investment, ma'am.
We
Companies
didn't do that
investing.
product label, so this one, common sustainable materials. Hello?
Ma'am, you are there from health product declaration. You have to continue from there, ma'am.
Sorry?
Health product declaration. You have to continue from there.
Sorry, can you please come again once more?
Ma'am, can you hear me, ma'am? Hello, ma'am. Ma'am,
I didn't, I can't hear you.
can someone else say to ma'am, please?
Ma'am, you are talking about electricity investment.
Electric, investment in electricity. Um, electricity. Oh, oh, okay, went all the way back there. Okay, then we will continue from the most common sustainable materials. Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the most common sustainable materials we have like a coconut, the dried part of the coconut, and then you have eco-friendly resin. You have eco-friendly stone wool. It is similar to your glass wool, but you use stone instead to make this. You have bamboo, recycled plastic, jute fiber, demolition wood. Demolition wood is something that is like the your all from your building your construction. Like for example, in Japan, no, yeah, because due to earthquake, all your wooden structures, all your houses get demolished, right? Those get recycled and made into wood once more. So that is what is demolition wood. Then you have got recycled bioethanol. Ethanol in itself is actually a non-sustainable material, but bioethanol is sustainable, eco-friendly links and recycled metal. So the labels you need to look for when you buy sustainable material is you have to see indoor air quality. Guys, can you follow me?
Yes, ma'am.
You're able to follow me, all of you?
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
just checking whether I'm still online or did the connection go. Okay, let's
You're good,
continue.
ma'am. You're good.
So the product you need to check for when you buy a sustainable material is indoor air quality. You have to check whether it's a forest product because a forest product definitely gets reforested. Then furniture, energy carpets, cleaning products, fabrics, sustainable multiple assignments. All these you have to check to see whether they have a green label on them. And then you have waste management. I'm not going into detail about waste management, but what I'm trying to tell you is you need to make sure that like how you have your in your design you give water treatment plants and sewage treatment plants, right? Like that, give one more waste treatment plant where you actually separate the biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste, so that your biodegradable waste gets collected and gets reused later. Okay, moving on to dangerous waste, the types of waste that you need to avoid completely is your mercury vapor bulbs. So, as much as possible, try not to get mercury vapor bulbs in your design at all. Where you design your lighting for any space, avoid your mercury vapor bulbs. Tiles that contain asbestos, then inks with high plumb contents, old cells and batteries, contaminated air conditioning filters, all this has to be avoided. Now, coatings and finishing. So, the type of coatings and finishing that you need to see. Look for all types of your paintings for walls, ceilings. What exactly your coatings and finishing is what this is. So walls, any painting that you get for your walls, floors, and ceilings. Anything that requires varnishing and waterproofing, textures with the mass or gypsum, the kind of installation you give in your floors, like carpet, wood, stone, all these are your coatings and finishing. So, what are you have to avoid in your coatings and finishings? VOC, volatile organic compounds, you have to make sure they are not there. Formaldehyde is one of your main VOC. It is found in your chairs and furniture, upholsteries, wallpapers, painting. Also, what you do is search for materials that do not have formaldehyde in them. Use materials that have either a low formaldehyde in them or something that uses so an alternate for it. So when you try to avoid if fire, even your fire retardants for when you try to give material for your fire safety purpose, you will give some material that has like a fire retardant or something. Even those actually are damageable for health. So you need to try to find an alternative for it. There are many alternatives available in the market. You just have to search for them. Uh, for fluorinated compounds, this is found in your water and stain resistant product. This is what makes the product water resistant and stain resistant, but they are actually damageable to your health, and it is also damageable to your environment. So, what you can do to avoid that is you can have search for an alternative on the market. Read the labeling for the kind of solutions that used for making it. Like, for example, anything that has that particular material mentioned, particular chemical mentioned, avoid it completely. And then you have a PVC, and even PVC is very commonly used everywhere. Please try to avoid PVC in your design as much as possible. Lead, again, that's something that needs to be avoided. Alternatives for paints and varnishes, what you can use for in the place of that, fabrics and coverings. So the list of chemicals harmful to the environment. How you find the list of chemicals harmful to the environment? You actually, these are the three main parts where you can actually find them. REACH is actually it stands for registration, evaluation, and authorization of chemicals. This has a full list of all the harmful chemicals to the environment. The red list for building materials. This is other thing that is used for trying to find out what all to avoid when you're buying when you're looking for sustainable material. And then the tests that are required for testing for VOCs and VOC declarations. These are your rules. This is what I was talking about regarding your sustainable zero house. Okay, the type of materials that you use to make sure your building is completely completely zero energy used. Okay, so what you do is and making sure that your building is completely sustainable. So what you will be doing is, for your walls, you use mineral paints instead of lead paints for your internal part, and then your external, for in case in cases of where you're using brick. Brick actually is for us in India. Brick actually is somewhere on par with a sustainable material, because one reason is the manufacturing process doesn't require too much of energy, and the second is because what do you call it? It is cheaper compared to the cost of food. Third reason is because when you actually choose between a natural material and wood, brick actually you can put it back on in your landfills. But when you look into wood, no, wood is you once what we do in the India is very few buildings. I mean, very few manufacturers actually go for forest materials or reforestation process. Once they cut down the trees, they do not replant it. Instead, what they do is that they use that same space to build something over there in its place. So, because of that, you can actually, if possible, try to avoid using wood in your design if you're designing in India in particular. Then your coverings, so you can use photovoltaic system, that is your solar paneling for your roofing. This actually provides you with energy for your building. It also provides you with investment factor, because whatever leftover energy you have from your solar, you can actually sell it back to the government and get paid for it. When you put in a solar panel, no, they will attach it to a small battery, which will be connected to your TNEB also. So whatever energy, I mean, whatever person just charge is going into that battery will power your house. Along with that, anything that is left over will go back to your TNEB station, where the TNEB station will pay you back for it. So that you can do. So the composite walls for your external walls. So that is another factor you can use instead of bricks. Composite walls are made completely of sustainable materials, that is recycled materials. And then you have waterproofing blankets, providing a thermal and acoustical insulation will actually reduce the heat factor of your building. So you will consume even lesser energy. Porcelain floors is made of 45% of recycled material, so it is all sustainable. Mineral painting, so these are water-based paintings. So because it's a water-based painting, there is no VOC used in its process, production process. There you have dual flush system. Like I was saying, when you specify your equipments also that you're using, where we are talking about a specification. So when you are specifying the kind of thing that you're going to be using in your interiors, you can use a dual flush system. It will reduce water consumption. Then for your internal walls, you can provide some sound insulation factor. You can provide a wooden frame, but your wooden frame that you are providing also again has to be a certified sustainable wood frame. Then you have green walls. Green walls is actually a biophilic design, biophilic factor. Then you have responsible furniture, that is go for furnitures that have been certified with sustainable stamp. And then walls in typer, that is it's a raw material used from the underground excavation. Okay. Then you have bamboo flooring. Bamboo is actually a rapidly renewable material, because bamboo grows very fast. Within 10 years, your bamboo is completely ready for use once more. So that is actually so much better than using your other wooden trees, because they take so much longer to grow, and then they have to go through the process of manufacturing to make it usable. But bamboo, it's you can Actually, before turning it into a product itself, as you take it out, you can use it as it is. You just have to split them apart, treat it, and then use it as it is. And then you have horizontal shading devices. This again will reduce your thermal energy inside your building, so that way you will use lesser amount of energy in your design. Okay, so we are done. Alright, class, do you have any questions? Nobody has any questions? Okay, if none of you are having any questions, I'm only just going to give you a link. Please fill in your feedback, and we will wind up. Okay, I've put a Google form link in your chat box. Please give in your feedback through that. I hope you have actually taken in something. So sustainable energy is a sustainable material. Sustainable design in itself is become a very important mainstream idea right now. People are going for sustainable design. As much as everybody is starting to get concerned about the planet, about the use of the resources. So people are opting for sustainable design and sustainable energy now. So the more you implement sustainable design on your wherever you're designing, you will use a lot of sustainable materials in your design. It will be much more easier for you to sell your design to your clients. Okay, anyone wants to ask anything? Or just please at least just fill in the form. And I'll just take your attendance for your interior design class. Give me the attendance, please. Just please give me your attendance. Soundarya Vaishnavi. This is your class only, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Soundarya Vaishnavi, are you present? Okay, absent. Abhinav Prasad, should I mark you absent? Abu Bakr Bashir Ahmad,
Yes, ma'am.
present. Aishwarya, present, absent, absent. Akhilandeshwari, Absent. Aquino. Absent. Alan Franklin. Absent. Anas Ahmad. Absent. Anthony Rohit. Absent. Anthony Rohit is absent. Charita. Absent. Charulata. Absent. Ganesh Kumar. Absent. Dinesh Kumar is absent. Okay. Darshan. Absent. Who all is present?
He's there. He's there.
Mm,
He's there in the meeting.
can you please tell me your name? I do not know who I'm talking to right now. Darshan, was that you?
No, ma'am. This is Abu Bakr.
Okay.
Dashant is in the meeting.
Gauri absent. Okay. Hari Krishna absent.
Ma'am, can you hear me, ma'am?
Hari Krishna is
Dashant.
present.
Dashant, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I didn't get you. What?
Dashant.
Dashant is present.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. Hari Krishna present or absent? Okay, absent. Harish Kumar absent. Hemalata absent. Jannat Fatima
Present, ma'am.
present. Okay. Jayant Shyam
Present, ma'am.
present. Okay. Joyce absent. Kamal Raj absent. Anchi absent. Kartika absent. I'm sorry, I do not know how you spell this name. Kedziel present or absent?
Schedule is absent, ma'am.
Who is absent? I mean, sorry, present. Hello?
Kedziel, ma'am.
Who is present? Hello?
Ma'am, can you hear me?
Okay. Okay, fine. Who are you telling is present? I'm not following you, ma. Kevin? Absent. Mudassir? Absent. Nanda Kumar? Absent. Freedav? Absent. Rahul?
Present, ma'am.
Present. Rajashri? Absent. Riti? Absent. Sagan Murmu? Absent. Sai Bhuvaneshwari? Absent. Santosh Kumar?
Present, ma'am.
Present. Okay. Sasidharan?
Ma'am, present, ma'am.
Present. Sharon Rose?
Present, ma'am.
Present. Sharon Sherani? Present, absent? Absent. Rishes? Absent. Sriram? Absent. Durga Lakshmi present. Vishnu Priya? Absent. Sujit? Absent. Tiri Manikant? Absent. Vaibhav Rajesh? Okay, absent. Valluri Sai Divya? Absent. Varnika Sri. Absent. Yaswant Kumar. Absent. Yogesh. Okay, absent. Fine class. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your patience. Okay, Chill is present. Okay. Anybody else who was present that I have marked absent over here? Most of them were present. Miss Durga Lakshmi, can you please tell me who? I'll just read out the names of those who are absent. Please tell me if they were present, okay? Soundarya? Durga Lakshmi, please reply, ma, because you're the
Ma'am,
only person who's responding to me.
ma'am, can you hear me, ma'am?
Soundarya was present or absent?
She was absent, ma'am.
Absent, okay. Abhinav was?
Present, ma'am.
Abhinav present. Then Aishwarya?
She was also present, ma'am.
Absent, okay. Akhilandeshwari?
Present, ma'am.
Aishwarya present, okay. Akhilandeshwari?
She was absent today, ma'am.
Absent.
Yes, ma'am.
Akino?
Akino absent, I think.
Absent. Alan Franklin?
Morning he came, ma'am.
Morning he came, but he didn't. Morning Asan, he was there for before lunch section.
Yeah, ma'am. He was there that time.
Okay, fine. Anas Ahmed,
Absent, ma'am.
he was absent.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh, Anthony Rohit,
He was there, ma'am, in the call.
one second, one second. Yeah, okay. Anthony Rohit is absent.
He was present, ma'am.
Present, okay. Charita,
Absent, ma'am.
absent. Charulata, absent. Dinesh Kumar, I feel like I
Present,
saw
ma'am.
him. Yeah, okay.
Dinesh present, ma'am.
Dinesh present, alright. Gauri absent.
Yes,
Hari
ma'am.
Krishna,
I don't know, ma'am.
Hari Krishna present or absent?
I didn't see him, ma'am.
Sorry?
I didn't see him, ma'am. I think he's absent.
Okay, fine. Harish Kumar,
Absent, ma'am.
absent. Harish Kumar. Then Hemalata,
Absent, ma'am.
absent, absent. Joyce,
Absent.
Joyce absent. Kamal Raj absent.
Hmm.
Panchi absent.
Yes, ma'am.
Kartika Shri absent.
Present, ma'am. She was there in the morning also.
Okay,
Before afternoon.
Kartika Shri present.
Hmm.
HCL present. Kevin absent.
Kevin, don't know,
Kevin is
ma'am.
present. Okay, fine. Only Kevin. Mudassir
Absent, ma'am.
absent. Nanda Kumar
Absent, ma'am.
absent. Prida
Prideep also absent, ma'am.
Prida also absent.
Yes, ma'am.
Present.
Prideep is absent, ma'am.
The Prida present or absent?
Absent. Absent, ma'am.
Okay, sorry. Okay, absent. Registry.
Present, ma'am. She was there.
Riti
Priti also present, ma'am.
present. Sugan, sorry, Sagan Murmu
Sagan is absent, ma'am.
absent.
Yes, ma'am.
Bhuvaneshwari,
She is present, ma'am.
sorry, Bhuvaneshwari absent.
Present, present.
Present. Okay. Then Sharon.
Sharon is present, ma'am.
Wait, which Sharon? Sharon Rose or Sharon Shirani?
Sharani also present only, ma'am.
Both the Sharon were present.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sri Shesh,
He was also there in the call, ma'am.
Absent.
Present.
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 Present. Okay. Precious present. Sriram.
Sriram, I don't know, ma'am. I didn't see.
Okay, fine then. Absent. Vishnu Priya.
I'm present, ma'am.
Present. Sriram. Okay. Vishnu Priya.
Vishnu, absent, ma'am.
Absent. Sujat.
Absent, ma'am.
Sujat present. Absent.
Absent, ma'am.
Absent. Okay. Manikant.
Absent, ma'am.
Absent. Vaibhav.
Vaibhav, he was there in
He
the
was
call,
there,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Present.
He was there, ma'am, in the call.
Okay, fine.
Present.
Vaibhav. Fine. Vaibhav. Sai Divya.
Sridivya, morning she is there, ma'am. Afternoon she didn't come.
Okay, Sai Divya was present in the morning. She's not there now.
Mm.
Okay. Varnika.
Varnika, don't know, ma'am. Didn't see.
Okay, then Yashwant Kumar.
Absent, ma'am.
Absent. Okay.
Yogesh also
Uh,
absent.
present.
Absent.
And Yogesh.
Absent, ma'am.
Absent.
That's all.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Thank you.
Durga.
No, Durga. Thank you, Durga.
Thank you, ma'am.